the only way to interact with us today, as all attendees will be muted. If time permits, we will give our presenter an opportunity to respond to questions at the end of the presentation. This presentation, as are all of FAIR's webinars, will be recorded and posted on FAIR's website in about 7 to 10 days. At this time, I'd like to introduce our presenter today. Dr. Jean Herzog is a lifespan psychologist in private practice in Wisconsin. She holds a master's degree in developmental psychology from Columbia University in New York and a doctoral degree in counseling psychology from Marquette University in Milwaukee. One of her specialties is the field of health psychology, helping people with the psychological adjustment to health and medical conditions, including having a severe food allergy. She has worked with children and families for 36 years in the public school system as a teacher, in medical hospitals as a child life specialist, and as a psychologist in private practice. Dr. Herzog focuses on the emotional stress of living with a food allergy and helps children, teens, and adults with allergies and the families that support them to create safety plans that deal with stress. A regular presenter at the Southeast chapter of the Food Allergy Association of Wisconsin, Dr. Herzog has presented at Wisconsin's 2014 Regional Food Allergy Conference, which was sponsored by FAIR's Community Outreach Program, as well as most recently the 2015 FAIR National Food Allergy Conference in Long Beach, California. So at this time, I will go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Herzog.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I can tell by the number of people who registered for this webinar that this topic is a critical one. You all likely know or are learning that living with a food allergy, either your own or your child's, is stressful. Living with any medical condition is hard on people, but research shows that living with a food allergy ranks high on the list of significantly affecting quality of life. I'd like to explain briefly why and what that stress might look like, especially for those of you who have a new diagnosis in the family. At the same time, I don't want to scare anyone. The mere fact that you are listening in to learn ways to manage this stress in yourselves and in your children gives you a huge leg up in the challenge. So bear with me through this part, and we'll talk solutions later. So let me validate for you why living with a food allergy is such a psychological challenge. Every day, every hour, human beings are motivated to fulfill some very basic needs. And all of our behaviors are efforts to fulfill those needs. According to Abraham Maslow, 3 of those basic needs are food, safety, and belonging. Food to sustain us, belonging to feel loved, and safety to survive. When these needs coincide, we can easily make choices and act so that these needs are met. For instance, let's say I've been asked to dinner at a Thai restaurant by friends. I'm hungry and I enjoy and can eat Thai food. I accept the invitation. My needs are met. The food will sustain me. Being with friends makes me feel loved and connected. And knowing and enjoying healthy food allows me to be safe and survive. But when a child with severe food allergies is invited to a birthday party with friends, and the others, perhaps the mom of the birthday boy, are not understanding of what it means to have a food allergy, and the food being offered is, say, mac and cheese and contains dairy, or the cake is sprinkled with pecans, accepting that invitation becomes a conflict. The same is true for college students and other adults with food allergies. As you can see here, these 3 needs are going in different directions. They conflict. And when food, safety, and belonging needs are conflicted, human beings experience stress and anxiety. They're trying to fulfill their basic needs, and the pathway to doing that is highly conflicted. And because parents bear the responsibility of helping their children fulfill these basic needs, they experience the same stress and anxiety. I know you all know that anxiety exists, but it does help for you to know why, and because basically it can help you cope with it. And by the way, when I'm finished here, I'd love to find a way to educate the other 310 million people in the world, those who don't live with food allergies, but we'll save that for another webinar. So let me give you some examples. My patient Ben, age 10, came to me with severe anxiety about going to school in the morning, where children eat together at lunch and teachers are not fully on board with his emergency care plan. Or Gracie, age 5, she came to me after her parents took a trip and she spent the long weekend with Grandma and Grandpa. She became conflicted about whether it was safe to eat her safe foods in their presence rather than her parents, so she stopped eating that weekend. And then there's Andy, a 21-year-old college student. He went off to college keeping in mind a list of all the safe foods his parents taught him. Since he lived so far from home, and like all college students craved independence and grown-up privileges, he crafted his own way of avoiding allergens. He began to eat from a list of about 10 foods only, and most of them not very nutritious. Not only was this causing health problems for him, but he unwittingly eliminated himself from so many social opportunities, because you don't get much social life if you don't eat pizza in college. The conflict went too far for all three of them. They chose to fulfill the safety need and stopped fulfilling the food or belonging need. But they're now getting help, and all three of these kids are happy and thriving. So this is what Ben, Gracie, Andy, and their parents had to learn first, that anxiety is not a four-letter word. Emotions are adaptive and provide great assistance to us. A little bit of anxiety, for example, actually keeps us on our toes. It tells us to check, observe, and question. A little bit, research shows that this is particularly true for those with food allergies. A moderate level of anxiety promotes diligence and adherence to safety measures in families with food allergies. And in turn, sticking to safety measures provides confidence to explore the world and continue to fulfill those other needs, like healthy eating and socializing. But they also had to learn this, that too much anxiety is debilitating. It can weigh us down. It can even end up backfiring on us. Anxiety is defined as a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. It is an abnormal and overwhelming sense of apprehension and fear, and is often marked by physiological signs, like sweating or increased pulse, or by thoughts of doubt concerning reality and the nature of the threat, and by self-doubt about one's capacity to cope with it. It affects our bodies and our thoughts. Too much anxiety, such as panic, has been found to bring on physical symptoms that look like allergic reactions, causing one to think they've been exposed to an allergen. It can also exacerbate the symptoms of an actual allergic reaction. And lastly, prolonged stress and anxiety are known to decrease general physical health. Stress and anxiety are hard on us. It's easy for anxiety to go from a little bit to too much. After all, there are so many uncertainties when you're living with food allergies, and some of the factors are difficult to control. And for parents, the responsibility of keeping their children safe can be quite heavy. Uncertainty, control, and responsibility can fuel anxiety. Sorry, having trouble going to the next slide. There you go. All right, so let me explain what this anxiety can look like. So you'll see on this slide that these symptoms are written really with a child in mind, but it isn't too hard to translate these symptoms into something a parent or an adult with allergies might experience. And these symptoms are not exclusive to food allergy anxiety. Many of life's stressors and developmental stages can bring on anxiety, but it might help to learn to recognize them so you can explore further to see if you or your child is reacting specifically to the stressors of living with a food allergy. Anxiety can manifest physically: crying, shaking, illness such as pain, stomach aches, headaches. If you notice these in yourself or your child, especially if there is no other apparent cause, they might be a sign of too much anxiety. Remember Gracie in the story I told before? One of her symptoms was a scratchy throat whenever her grandparents invited her to sit for a meal, even though she was only offered her safe foods. This might be due to the fact that when she had her 2 exposures in her young little life, both began with a scratchy throat. Anxiety can change behaviors. Though many of these are typical of kids in general, consistent irritability and avoidant behaviors are 2 of the most common I see with food allergy kids. And Gracie, age 5, remember, she insisted on reading labels of foods even after her parents and grandparents checked labels for her. I know kids are learning to read at an early age, of course, but some of those words on the labels are hard for me to read. Anxiety is an emotion, but it is driven by thoughts or cognition. So when thoughts are fearful, negative, hopeless, suspicious, or when those thoughts disrupt concentration or attention, too much anxiety might be present. These negative thoughts create anxiety, and in turn, when we feel anxiety, we tend only to focus on the negative thoughts. It's a vicious cycle. And remember those 3 basic needs, food, safety, and belonging? Well, sometimes when it gets too stressful to try to meet all 3, the belonging need gets tossed by the wayside. And that can look like withdrawal from all social events or other unhealthy social behaviors. Let me give you some examples of how you might see this in kids of different ages. The pathway through anything in life for children changes as they grow. How they express their emotions, how they behave, the thinking skills they have, and how they relate to others. These may also affect how a child may react to living with a food allergy. For example, kids age 1 to 6 in the dependent age, they tend to mirror their parents' emotions, and they typically deal with concrete information placed in front of them. Socially, their world is simple, with the immediate family being primary. At this age, for a child with food allergies, if a parent is anxious, the child may mimic them. And since they are concrete thinkers, they don't quite yet think ahead to the what-if possibilities, so they are less likely to be anxious. There are, of course, exceptions. One might be a child who has had an exposure and a frightening reaction. That child might now have concrete knowledge that this reaction could happen again, which increases anxiety. Since the network of people in their life is narrow, they are better protected at this age, which decreases the anxiety in the parents. Now let's take a look at a child between age 7 and 12. They're learning to think more abstractly. They can hypothesize about the future. At this age, their social world expands to include more friends and other adults, like coaches and teachers. Emotionally, they express their feelings in a broader context, but with little control against hormonal changes that are happening. So for a child with food allergies, the capability of imagining the potential consequences of exposure and how the precautions might limit their social activities leads to an increase in anxiety, especially if they compare themselves to the bigger world around them, which is more common now. While they're more aware of their emotions, they're still clumsy at expressing them, which might be why anxiety tends to come out in behavioral, social, or academic difficulties. Now let's look at the teenagers, aged 13 to 18. This stage is marked by increased intelligence and desire for independence. Social worlds start to include dating and a wider net, and we see more maturity in expression of emotion. Teens with food allergies at this stage are likely to be quite competent in their awareness and knowledge of precautions. But in some, their willingness to take these precautions might be undermined by the teen's wish for inclusion or the need to fit into their larger social world, not to mention their rite of passage to learn more intimate ways of friendship. This can certainly cause parents to be more anxious as their ability to control the choices of their teen reduces. Lastly, let's look at young adults. Eager to manage their own lives, even if they aren't always fully prepared. They're focused on the future, whether it's career, relationships, marriage, having a family, traveling, and all of this is supposed to happen without so much support from parents. A bigger world without parents. Emotionally, they pride themselves on being mature, even though they have much to learn. Young adults with food allergies have to integrate their food, safety, and belonging precautions into their normal lifestyle. If they've had practice through their childhood and success, they could handle this well. Their parents are still more likely to be the anxious ones at this stage. Those are just some examples, and there are many more scenarios that could take place, and always exceptions to human growth and development. If you're a parent of a growing child with food allergies, the take-home message here would be to learn about developmental changes in kids and watch for different signs of healthy response and unhealthy response to dealing with food allergies, because kids change. Okay, let's all take a moment to take a breath, because that was scary information. But just like it's crucial to be informed and knowledgeable about the threats of an allergic reaction and the potential consequences, it's crucial to know about the threats and potential consequences of anxiety. This information just might help you and your child live a healthier emotional life. And it works the same way. The trick is to not be anxious about anxiety, because that's when it becomes too much. Anxiety is manageable, and you've got bigger and more dangerous threats to watch for. So let's create a plan. Just like your emergency care plan can help you avoid, reduce, and prepare for the impact of an exposure to an allergen, you can develop an emotional safety plan to help you avoid, reduce, or prepare for the impact of stress. First and foremost, if you are a parent of a child with food allergies, it is essential that you take care of your emotional health first. You know the instructions that the flight attendants give us on airplanes. We sometimes drown it out and stop listening, but this is a good metaphor for life. They say, in the event of a loss of cabin pressure, an oxygen mask will drop down from the ceiling. If you are traveling with a small child, please place your mask on first before putting a mask on your child. So why is this their policy? Because you will not be of any help to your child if you are passed out from a lack of oxygen. Same holds true for our safety measures. Parents, accept the challenge bravely. The very fact that you have to be brave is an indicator that this is scary. That's a given. This is your chance to model for your child the strength they will need to accept their challenge with bravery. Every family likely experiences challenges. This one is your family's. You know that fight or flight response humans have? While it can help in an allergic emergency, it can't work here. You can't run away from this challenge, and fighting it narrows your options. When you accept, you take your emotional blinders off and you start to see more choices, options, and opportunities that you might not have if you were fighting the challenge rather than accepting it. It takes time, but it will help keep you emotionally healthy. Knowledge is power. Learn about this challenge, about schools, foods, labels, precautions, and even managing the emotional impact. At first, it overwhelms, but when the knowledge is reputable, when you trust those with the information, and when you are allowed to share the information with others who care, you will feel powerful in the challenge. And this includes teaching your child about this knowledge. But let me give you a cautionary note on that, because I get this question often. Share knowledge with kids in a developmentally appropriate way. Knowledge about risks and potential consequences is difficult to share with kids, and it helps to figure out your child's level of understanding and how that knowledge will affect him or her. Then share it gently. The older the child gets, the more details you can share. Unfortunately, our allergy kids are required to grow up faster than other kids. They are given responsibilities that other kids might not have, like advocating for themselves with other adults over food issues. The good news is that this improves their confidence and their intelligence. So teach them with sensitivity to their age and adjust as they get older. It is extremely important that parents make time to take care of their own emotional, physical, social, and cognitive needs. That might require you to separate yourself from your kids or your family at points of time to do this. Dinner with friends, dates, exercise, yoga, taking a class, jobs, hobbies. This isn't just because we know these to be healthy in general. If you are taking care of yourself, you will have the energy, optimism, and bravery to accept the challenge of having kids who live with a food allergy, and you'll set a good example. I know it means you'll need to rely on others to help care for your children and keep them safe. This is one of the reasons managing food allergies is so stressful. One study found that kids saw more danger in the fact that other people don't care than in the allergen itself. They believe they can protect themselves from the allergen, but they're not so sure they can protect themselves from others who don't care about food allergies. We don't just need a village on this one. We need a knowledgeable and caring village, and we're working on that. Okay. Now you can create that safety plan for your child or teen. Depending on the age of your child or teen, and if they were listening today, this is what I would want to tell them to do so they can avoid, reduce, or prepare for the impact of stress. You are awesome. One of the strongest things about you will be your willingness to accept the challenge of eating safely. You won't always like it, but sometimes the things we don't like to do teach us the most in life. You'll get it someday. Until then, consider yourself a brave warrior because you've earned it. Having a food allergy can be scary, but you'll be less scared if you learn and follow your emergency care plan, including taking precautions. Then share information about your allergies and your care plan with other kids and teachers who care. They're out there. Your parents will help you find them. Good friends are necessary in life, and so is having fun. If you know yourself and you know your stuff, you can be prepared for anything. Knowledge gives you the power to control some things, and a little control over your life allows you to relax and have fun. And when you do feel worried, unsure, embarrassed, left out, anxious, or sad, talk about these feelings. It helps, trust me. And learn some strategies for calming your thoughts and your body. If you do this, you'll actually feel happier, even though you're living with a food allergy. Hey, I know you have a food allergy, but what else do you know about yourself? Your allergy is only one interesting thing about you, but I know there's more. Embrace all the cool things about you, like your favorite sport, your best friend, stuff you're good at, your best subject at school, your favorite video game character. Make your world bigger than just the food allergy world. And this is a side note for parents. This safety measure will help your children broaden their identity and learn to appreciate all aspects of themselves. In turn, the strength they get from that will help them balance all those times they have to sit at the nut-free table, skip school for an appointment with the allergist, make sure the EpiPen is packed, ask about every food on the menu, or skip a party because the kids are making peanut butter cookies. It takes a well-rounded kid to endure those precautions every day. Please feel free to find ways to adapt this list for the specific age of your child or teen, then help them incorporate these strategies into their emotional plan. You can teach these ideas by talking with them, through interactive play, by challenging them, and of course, by example. Now, for adults with food allergies, here are a few action items for your safety plan. Whether you're newly diagnosed or have lived with food allergies since childhood, you're not abnormal. This is about living your normal lifestyle. There's so much talk today about lifestyle, whether people are on diets or trying to stay fit or eat healthier or find more balance in their life, give up a bad habit, learn something new. It's all about creating a healthy lifestyle. Your step is to work your safety and food needs into your normal lifestyle. And while it's good to be an expert on food allergies, it's important to also spend time and energy on other activities that bring you joy and that aren't so scary or complicated. And find your people, those with food allergies and caring people who don't have food allergies, because your social need is just as important as your food and your safety need. Finally, learn ways to calm your mind and your body so that you have the energy you need to deal with that little amount of anxiety that comes with having a food allergy. So far, all my plans for safety are about lifestyle perspectives and changes. But anxiety is such a mind-body emotion. Remember from our definition, it often includes thoughts and is felt in the body. In fact, anxiety is an emotion that originates in the brain, specifically the amygdala, in the same place that gives us the fight or flight response. It's got adaptive and protective qualities, but it can also get out of our control. And since it originates from a part of the brain, which is the kingpin of the central nervous system, it can travel and affect all sorts of functions in our body. For example, it can cause heart rate to increase, sweat glands to activate, and stomach enzymes to alter, leading to the proverbial butterflies in the stomach or full-blown nausea. And when we're anxious, we tend to flood our minds with negative or scary thoughts, which makes the anxiety increase. So to manage anxiety, we need to manage both our thoughts and our bodies. This is for everyone, children and teens of all ages, adults with food allergies, parents taking care of children. In fact, it's actually for all those who care about the welfare of the 15 million people living with food allergies. Teachers with kids with food allergies in their classes, grandparents, roommates, boyfriends, girlfriends, because when we love or care about someone with a food allergy, we care enough to want to be diligent and cautious, and we want to be responsible. And that can be anxiety-provoking. So please share. We'll talk about calming your thoughts, but that's actually easier to do if you first calm your body. And this is because your body houses your central nervous system and the brain, where these thoughts originate. First, when you begin to feel anxious, notice how it first feels in your body, in your stomach, your head, or your limbs. These early signs are good clues that anxiety is coming, and it would be best to calm it before it gets too high. There are many ways to calm the body. Simple things like gentle touch or a hug from someone you trust, petting your cat or dog, listening to music or white noise, a gentle stimulation to any of your senses, or following a number of relaxation exercises you can find in apps, in books, or online. Each of these is helpful in altering your central nervous system ever so slightly, which then gives you the ability to manage your tension better. My go-to strategy is belly breathing or abdominal breathing. I even teach my youngest patients to belly breathe and then to use it when they feel scared, worried, or anxious. Let me quickly walk you through it. You know, in our fast-paced world, and especially if we are high in emotion, we tend to breathe shallowly and inefficiently. Learning to belly breathe can help. If you lie on your stomach, you'll actually automatically belly breathe. Try it. And if you sit or lie on your back, then relax your shoulders and chest and inhale slowly and naturally. When you inhale in this relaxed position, oxygen fills your lungs and causes your diaphragm to push your belly out, hence belly breathing. And then it feels like your belly deflates when you exhale. A 1 to 3 minute belly breathing session can significantly relax the body. And if you do this every day, you'll slowly gain better control over your body, being able to transition from tense to relaxed. Calming your body, especially for kids, will naturally happen when you're having fun, being energetic or playful, exercising, laughing, and if you're well rested. Try to find a balance in your day and in your week to include all of these strategies. If you think of it, they're all part of most of our daily activities. Try them all and see what works for you or your child. Then write out your own customized safety plan for calming your body and have it be at the ready when you or your child need it. For instance, do a quick calming activity prior to going to school, heading out to a birthday party, trying a new food, or when worrisome thoughts come. Okay, now that your body is calm, Anxiety can reduce even more if you calm your thoughts. Anxious thoughts, the what ifs we ask ourselves, are usually negative, sometimes irrational, sometimes completely realistic, but negative nonetheless. Create optimism by disputing those negative thoughts. I like to use this reply to my negative thoughts. Yes, that's possible, but it's also possible that, and fill in the blank, with something more neutral or positive. So I do have a quick example of that. I headed out to the airport this morning, and 15 minutes into my ride, I realized I forgot my telephone. And that was critical. Yes, I'm dependent on my phone, but I really needed it today. So the first thing I thought was, I've got to go back and get it. I was beginning to realize that this might mean I'm going to miss my plane. This caused me great anxiety. I knew I couldn't function with that much anxiety. So I have to practice what I preach, and I said to myself, yes, that's possible. You might miss your plane. But it's also possible that you left far enough advanced that you have time to do this, and that traffic will be good, and that the line at TSA will be really small, and that you'll make your plane. And that calmed my anxiety, not down to zero, because I was worried, but I made it to the airport. Actually, traffic was great, TSA was empty, and I had time to get coffee. So in the end, it was a good turn of events. I know that my situation wasn't life-threatening, and sometimes it's harder to imagine more positive possibilities. But I think if you try, you could come up with some possibilities. Let's say you're worried that your teenage daughter will forget to pack her EpiPen for the sleepover. This could easily cause some anxiety. If you try my solution and you say, yes, that's possible, she might forget to pack her EpiPen, but it's also possible that I've taught her well. It's also possible she'll want to make sure that she's carried it. And I can listen. And if you reduce your anxiety at that level, you're much more likely to be able to give her a call and calmly remind her. Diligence causes us to use the strongest part of our brain, the one that looks for danger. This can be exhausting and anxiety-provoking. Try more often to notice when you're safe, when you're succeeding at following the emergency care plan. Then focus on all the things you can do, because my experience is that kids with food allergies often focus on what they can't do or can't eat. This is a glass half full versus glass half empty sort of strategy. Ask yourself, what are all the things about which I'm brave? It takes bravery to live with a food allergy, but sometimes focusing on your confidence in other areas as well is good for you. This promotes pride, which helps you accept any challenge. I'm always amazed at how brave my patients with food allergies are about 1,000,001 other things that scare them, but they find the bravery, like riding a bike or doing gymnastics. Or like Gracie, it's climbing. She says she's like a monkey, she climbs so much, and she's actually broken her arm while climbing, yet she's still brave. Living with a food allergy will challenge one's ability to have control, certainty, and choices. It will make a person think they have little of these in life. However, take inventory of the many things about which you do have control and choices, and create certainty in other areas of your life, like your daily routine, habits, and values. Empower yourself in the other areas of your life. Each day that you are successful at being exposure or reaction-free, you are living proof that you are successful at your emergency care plan. You likely have many more days reaction-free than days with an exposure and reaction. Again, focus on this when you need to create optimism in your thinking. And log into FAIR's website weekly, not to overwhelm yourself, but to remind yourself that they and others are working on research and education every day, including educating those without food allergies, the people we so desperately need to understand and care, so that they can help us create safe environments for food, education, and socializing. Ask your doctor not just about risks, but also about safe situations. There may be more than you think. And lastly, keep a list of the skills you've learned to live safely with food allergies. This will give you confidence, help calm your thoughts, and in turn your anxiety. The slide you see now has some other ideas to try, and they're pretty self-explanatory. So I'm going to leave it up there while I recap on what we know so far. Living with a food allergy in your family can be stressful. That stress is not your fault. It's natural for you or your child to be motivated to fulfill your basic needs of food, safety, and belonging. But when those needs do not coincide, when trying to meet one challenges the other, then you experience conflict, which can lead to anxiety. Anxiety is an emotion that is adaptive and helpful if it comes in moderate doses. But when anxiety becomes too much for you or your child, it becomes maladaptive and can cause changes in your body, your thoughts, your behaviors, and your relationships. All of these impact your life in ways you might not like. The good news is you can manage the anxiety and prevent, reduce, and prepare for that impact. We concluded with a variety of ideas and recommendations for focusing on your emotional health and that of your child, including gaining knowledge to empower you, teaching others about food allergies to encourage them to care, finding balance in all areas of life, calming the body, and calming the thoughts. Please play around with these strategies. Find the ones that work for you, and if you find others share those ideas. My list is far from exhaustive. This last piece is this. Sometimes families need more help than FARE or an allergist or a support group can give. Consider seeking professional help, that of a counselor, psychotherapist, or psychologist who specializes in anxiety, health psychology, or even food allergies. Seek help when you observe in your child or teen too much anxiety and the strategies aren't helping enough, or when you see too much anxiety in yourself. And this is especially true when the signs of too much anxiety last longer than 6 weeks, or when they're seriously getting in the way of a healthy daily life. And lastly, consider a professional to help you create a safety plan for emotional health as a prevention. Some coaching on managing emotions is actually good for everyone. Thank you for listening, and I believe we're going to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Herzog. Dr. Herzog has provided her contact information here and her website, so if you would like to touch base with her, her contact information is there. At this time, we are going to take some general questions from people who have submitted them ahead of time and throughout, and we will try to get as many of your questions in as we possibly can. The first one that came in is from the mom of a tween and a teen, both allergic to nuts, eggs, and shellfish. And she has found that they can be frustrated with her when she gives what she thinks are thoughtful suggestions for how they might manage their allergies. And they often come back with, but you don't have food allergies, so you don't know how it is. And she would like to know, as a mom, what is the best response for a situation like this?
It's a good question and a tough age. I think your kids probably want you to validate them first. So a good response might be to say, you're right, I don't have food allergies, and I don't know everything. That will disarm them a little bit, and they might be more open to listening to your suggestions. And it might help, too, if you ask them what their suggestions are, because they're getting to that age where they kind of think they know everything. And it's good for you to ask. Even if you don't necessarily agree with their suggestions, it's good for you to ask them, give them a chance to share their expertise since they are the kids with food allergies. It might help that connection and that question and answer time a little bit.
Great. Another question that has come through from an adult with food allergies, she writes that one of the biggest challenges that she faces kind of deals with social stigma and what she perceives people thinking or treating her as if she's somehow weak or lesser for having a chronic condition like a food allergy. And she thinks that this is true for a lot of people with chronic condition and food allergy. So what are some strategies for offsetting the effects of social stigma and perceived judgment?
Right. And I allude to that in my talk a little bit about how we really need people to understand and care about those with food allergies, so that that social stigma, kind of reduces. And we have a lot of work to do in that area. We're doing a lot to educate all of you, but we really need to educate other people. I think that you have to find your people, and that was one of the answers, one of the strategies on the safety plan for young adults. It might not be a large group of people that you feel most comfortable with, but you'll know the people that are more interested in listening to your situation and learning from you. Usually when they hear how dire the consequences can be if you share that information, the more likely they are going to start putting themselves in your place and realize that this is critical for you. It is about really finding your people, those that connect with you and those that you feel safe around. And that's not an easy thing to do, but if you do that, I think that might make you feel more comfortable socially.
Great. This is another question from a parent of a teenager who their teen has always been okay with her safety plan until she had a reaction 2 years ago. And she since has gotten conflicting responses from allergists on when it's appropriate to use epinephrine, and the place where she had a reaction was a place that they had sort of identified as like a safe place that she traditionally ate at. And so she's become very anxious about feeling this way, and she's got some trust issues and anxieties based on that experience. And so are there any recommendations for a situation like this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example of the foundation falling out from under her, the things that she relied upon, which is what people with food allergies need to do. They need to rely on rules and safe, emergency care plans and professionals that know their stuff. And that obviously that's not as strong of a foundation in this case. Things change. And I think families living with food allergies have to learn to be adaptive, for one, and that's certainly a good lesson in that case. I think maybe this teen, you said it was a teen, right? That this teen probably needs to be able to talk about those trust issues. It could be that she's feeling some trauma from that, and that's going to turn on that doubt. And teens are emotional at this point anyway, so it'd be good for her to be able to talk about that. That might be a good time to seek professional help, just so that she's not stuck in that place of not being able to trust, because she could stay there too long.
A couple of questions came through about finding a health professional in dealing with anxiety. So what are some recommendations that you would provide in terms of finding a mental health professional, and if there's any specialist that is, best as far as, preparation in dealing with health psychology?
Well, I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years, and I have trouble finding professionals who are knowledgeable about food allergies in my state and in other states. I know that there are a few out there. I've found a few online. I think that in a search for a professional, you want to first, if you're talking about a child or a teen, make sure that that professional is trained and qualified and happy to work with teens and kids. That's really important. Secondly, they should definitely be trained in anxiety, which I would say probably most therapists are. The specialties of health psychology are, a little bit harder to find, but and certainly with food allergies, I'd love for FARE to start educating some mental health professionals so we get more in this country spread out around. I've just taken on my first Skype patient who's across states, so because she couldn't find anybody. But I do think that if you're seeking information, you call a therapist who fits some of those parameters, and you talk to them on the phone and ask them if they've ever worked with someone with a food allergy. And if they haven't, but they're interested in doing it, ask if you can come in and consult with them. Ask if they'll give you a free consult. That's probably what I would do. And ask them, if they'll let you teach them first about some of those parameters and some of the special issues that come along with that. That's how I learned 6 or 7 years ago, directly from my patients, and then, of course, went on to do more research. But I know that's a hard one, but it is about asking specific questions. You get to ask those questions when you call a therapist, and vet them out to make sure they're right for you.
Great, thank you. Another question came through from a parent who has a 2-year-old and is peanut allergic, and she's not sure how to talk with him in an age-appropriate way about his allergy. Any specific books, websites, anything like that that you might recommend?
Yeah, 2 is quite a young age to actually try to explain that to as specifically as we might explain it to someone older. I think at 2, there are many things you're going to teach your child not to eat, not to put in their mouth, gum, for instance. And so I think if you make it about this is good for you to eat, this is not, and not so much about the peanuts, because I don't think they'll quite get that. Obviously, you and this 2-year-old, any other child care providers are going to have to be the one to really make sure that precautions are taken. But I would say within about a year, I would say by 3, you're going to be able to explain it a little bit more specifically so that they'll understand it. And there are some resources out there with coloring books that kind of teach some of the younger kids about food allergies. It doesn't go down to 2, but it could be a start.
Great. Moving a little bit higher up on the age range, we have a parent of a 5-year-old, and she was looking for some recommendations on how to advise talking about the severity of food allergies as it relates to a consequence. And her specific situation, they haven't discussed the idea of, food allergies can be fatal, but she has close friends at school who have learned at home that, the allergies can be that serious. And so what is some advice, considering she's quite young and, that's a difficult topic to talk about?
Yeah, I think at 5, I don't know that a 5-year-old would be ready for a statement about potential death. I'm hoping that she doesn't learn that from other people who might repeat it from their parents or something like that. But if she were to learn it from others, I think that's where a parent would say, okay, here's my opportunity to explain it. I think at 5 it's better to say that it can make you really, really sick and not go to the point of death, because, as I said earlier, 5-year-olds are pretty concrete thinkers. They may not be able to make sense, first of all, about death, and secondly, about the fact that it only comes if you're going to eat this. They may not be able to make that connection until they're a little bit older and they can kind of get a better sense of consequences and timing on that. So I would stick to explaining that it can make you really sick and we don't want you to feel sick, so we're going to do everything we can to avoid that.
And any recommendations for perhaps communicating with some of those parents that may be communicating message to their kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a smart idea. I think it's about hoping that they are open to your conversation. If they are talking to their kids about the severity, then it sounds like they get it. So they're probably going to be more open to listening to your concern, and your concern especially about the 5-year-old finding out information she might not be able to handle yet. So I would definitely make a move to talk to them if you have that opportunity.
Great, thank you. Another question that came through was, I guess, related to people that sort of dismiss, like, reactions are in your head, or sort of dismissing on the other end, dismissing the severity of it. So how do you deal with people, taking sort of that attitude of dismissal and kind of trying to get them to explain the severity of food allergies?
What I've learned over the years is that the word allergy, it fits medically, but it's a generic term to the general population. And when they think a person has food allergies, they think it equates to something like being allergic to pollen. They don't know that this is a different kind, a different level of severity of allergy. So people are coming from a different context when they minimize or dismiss. They don't know, they are not educated, they're not understanding of it, they don't have a personal reference for it, so they're basing the fact that a person has an allergy on the knowledge that they have of general allergies, not food allergies. So it might be helpful if you're talking about another parent, a teacher, friends, it might be helpful to say, can I teach you a little bit about food allergies, because it's quite different than other allergies. Not that other allergies can't be severe as well, but again, there are so many general common allergies out there that are a bit milder, that they don't have that experience. And I would be ready with information, a newspaper article, information you can get from FAIR or something else that shows, that proves that this can be a life-threatening medical condition, and hopefully that would help.
Great. As an aside to the individual that had inquired about books for her 2-year-old, there's been a couple of suggestions that have come through. So if anybody would like some book recommendations, you can email education@foodallergy.org, and we'll be happy to send you over some of the running list that's been coming through. Another question that came through is from a parent who, I guess there are different perspectives between mother and father in terms of how to handle food allergies, and I feel like this is a fairly consistent quandary that some parents run into, where one parent may downplay the seriousness of a food allergy, and so there sometimes can be some disagreements in terms of having sort of a one unified plan as a family. So any recommendations for kind of working through those nuances?
Right. Well, this is not exclusive to the food allergy families. This is so common in many parenting issues. So I've certainly seen it many times. I have brought couples into my my office, and we sit down and we try to figure out how this happened. Sometimes it's just general way of looking at, challenges. One person might be a little bit more laid back and the other person might be a little bit more on edge. Unfortunately, what happens in a couple situation is that the more on edge person gets, the more laid back the laid back person gets, to balance this out. And when I point this out to them, and I point out that it's just dividing and separating it, making it harder for the foundation of their child with food allergy to be strong, we start to work on, bringing them a little bit closer to it. Usually the one who is on edge about food allergies thinks that the one who's laid back really isn't scared, but the one who's laid back really is scared. They're just choosing to respond to it in a different way. But good communication and maybe some help with that, I think, could be helpful especially because you've got to create a strong, foundation for your child so that they feel safe around both of you.
Great. Another question came in from an actual teenager living with food allergies. How she's looking for strategies on how to explain to her friends about her food allergies.
Yeah, that's hard. You know, again, I'm going to go back to this, you know, I'm repeating myself, but my question would be, have you found your people? Do you have, first of all, do you have friends with food allergies? I was amazed. I went to the FAIR conference in Long Beach, and I met a whole bunch of teenagers who are, you know, really learning and attending some summit here in D.C. at some point next. I'm not sure when it is. And they're supporting each other and validating each other because they all know what it's like. And it feels so good for them to have that connection. So if you have any friends or know anyone with food allergies or you want to get involved, contact FAIR. But if you don't, if all of your friends, your close friends or people you want to be friends with don't have food allergies, once again, like the answer to this other woman that answered the question about friends, is, you know, ask to sit down and teach them a little bit. Ask them to, you know, spend the day with you to see what you have to do in order to take your precautions. Show them your emergency care plan. Talk to them about how often you have to go to the allergist. And don't feel like you're whining when you do it, because I think that's what kids are going to say. Well, I don't want to talk about myself. I feel like I'm saying negative things. But these are truthful things, and you're asking for friendship and understanding, because those friends are going to turn around and do it about something else. You know, their parents are divorcing, or they have a medical condition or something like that. You know, friends are supposed to support each other in all of their challenges. Ask for that support.
Great. And just as an aside, we do have a number of teen programs. So we, you know, through our teen advisory group, we do often, you know, pair up people with mentors and mentees if they're looking for sort of some one-on-one communication. As Dr. Herzog had mentioned, we do have teen programs as part of our annual conference as well as our annual Teen Summit. And Teen Summit will be in November in Washington, D.C. This year. So you can go on our website for information on all that. We also have a Facebook group where teens can connect if your teen is on Facebook. Another question that came through, and I believe it's from the parent of a teenager, is what to do if the allergic child refuses to seek help. Any tips for kind of handling that as a parent?
Yeah. I mean, I've had it happen. And sometimes I can get the parent to set up a parameter that invites the teen to come in for one session only. So they kind of say, for one session, I want you to get some I mean, they're not going to not go to an allergist. So if you present it as, this is a person who could help us with some of the challenges of living with a food allergy. You only have to see him or her once, you know, something like that. If you found a therapist who will coordinate that with you. And in that first session, if the therapist can hook them in, they'll sometimes come back. Or you kind of set up something, look, go for a couple weeks, see how it feels, and then come back and let me know. This is what I usually do. Most of the time, I can get them to want to come back. I like to refer to it as coaching when I'm dealing with someone who doesn't want to come in for counseling because they think there's something wrong with them or that there's a stigma attached. So I'll call it coaching, and that seems to work a little bit better. If you can't get your teen in, my suggestion is that you go in and talk to a therapist about how you can help your child, because there are a lot of things you can do. Look, I just gave you a whole bunch of things you can do at home with your kids. That therapist could give you some ideas that you could bring home to help your child deal and cope with things without necessarily seeing the therapist.
Great. I think that actually brings us to time. So for those of you that did submit questions that we didn't get an opportunity to respond to, you are welcome to email us at education@foodallergy.org, and we'll be happy to kind of try and support you for any of those questions we weren't able to ask in the general setting today. But we're very grateful to Dr. Herzog for being with us today, and to all of you for joining us today as part of our monthly webinar series. Next month, we will be doing a webinar on emergency treatment of anaphylaxis and addressing trends in care and plans for improvement. We'll be going over some of our topics that we talked about at our ER Summit last year, and this will be led by Jen Jobrack, FAIR Senior Director of Advocacy. And so that will take place on Wednesday, July 15th at our regular time, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Member registration for this webinar will open on Friday, June 26th, and general registration will open on Monday, June 29th. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today, and that will conclude today's webinar, and we hope to see you again next month.
Thank you.